This is Christina Barn. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. It's an enormous news day today. So today, Donald Trump. I thought we were going to probably learn this during like the middle of the broadcast, but we already know now that JD Vance is the VP pick, and we'll be talking about that. The RNC convention starts today. We'll be talking about Biden's address to the nation and my thoughts on that, which I already posted an article about it. So if you read that, you already know my thoughts on that and his lack of accountability. And also Trump's most problematic case ended up falling apart. And some people are like, oh, talking about the Florida documents case, like he had presidential immunity. There were some things that with obstruction that made things very kind of difficult for Trump, but the judge threw it out. And I'm not sure if they'll appeal it. People are like, they're going to appeal it. Maybe they'll appeal it, but nothing's going to get done prior to the actual election. And if Trump wins, where's all this going to go anyway? So Trump has had an incredible weekend. Obviously, his life was in danger. And if he had not turned his head a certain way at the right moment, he might not be here with us, and he recognizes that. I wonder how that has changed him. And we'll see. He's talking about we need to come together and unite. And Biden is trying to look at the moment and say we need to unite. And, I hope people change their political rhetoric. But that doesn't excuse things that have been done. So we're going to talk about that because there's like no appropriate accountability for a lot of stuff. So we got to talk about all this stuff. Someone said, I don't accept the rainbow people and the socialist unity is impossible, but better laws to protect society in traditional ways is key. Well, I think no one's saying let's all come together with our disagreements. I think they're just mean like, let's respectfully disagree with a lot of stuff. But I don't know. I took a while trying to figure out what was going to be my title of the episode. And I'm like, if I type in assassination, they're going to limit the, they're going to, ding it and stuff. So I'm like, well, they're talking about unity or whatever. So I don't totally buy it though, because that is such a large portion of Biden's campaign. His whole campaign in 2020 rested on vicious lies that he told about Donald Trump, and he continues to tell them, which are really, really, really dangerous and have caused great harm to our country, which we will get through. But anyway, before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, videos, etc. Like the article I just posted today about this, address that Biden did. You guys can also make sure you're putting in your email for different email newsletters that would go out. Check out different merch that we have available at the store, like this I'm Not the Victim You're Looking For shirt and other stuff like this Denounce White Supremacy, Defeat Joe Biden shirt. I also have different books you guys can check out. If you search my name on Amazon, Christina Albar, you'll be able to find my stuff, like my book, Of Course God is Blatantly Against Abortion. That's available, so you guys can check that out as well. I have 18 books altogether. 2 are nonfiction. So if you're looking for some fiction books, I got plenty as well that you guys can check out. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost to stream and run my website. All the stuff you guys can support. I very much do appreciate it. Bible says have not because you ask not. So I am asking if you can. I understand if you cannot, but if all you can do is watch, I appreciate it. But you can watch and share. You can tell someone else about Black Tea News if you enjoy it. Say, hey, there's this I don't know how young of a woman I am now, but you could say young woman, I guess, who, is saying these things. And I like her content. I think you'll enjoy it. So go ahead and, you know, share in that regard. There's, social media giants and overlords are trying to suppress here, but you guys can help beat that. So I appreciate it if you do your part. Anyway, I also want to talk about Destiny, but I don't know how much of Destiny I'm going to be able to get through because there's a lot of news. Because I saw that stuff last night and I wanted to talk about it, but then I'm like, oh my gosh, they dropped the court case, and again, there's just a lot of news, and of course, what happened over the weekend on Saturday. I did do a special live on Saturday, so if you didn't catch it, and you're like, why isn't this whole thing about that? I mean, we're obviously going to talk about the assassination attempt and the lack of security. Someone pieced together a real time video to show how absurd it was that they reacted so slowly. So I will show you guys that. But I did talk about it on Saturday night. So anyway, I want to knock this out of the way. So President Trump's case in Florida has been dismissed. And so there was 4 altogether. He already got convicted of the one in Manhattan, which was crazy. But everyone pretty much acknowledged, not everyone, every honest person, I would say, looking at the facts of the case, would acknowledge that it's a garbage case. Andrew Cuomo, former governor of the state, who's also attorney general, came out and said if he wasn't running for president and if it wasn't Donald Trump, there's no way this case would have been brought. And I am the former attorney general. I'm telling you that's the case. And so he said on Bill Maher's program. So that one is done. I'm sure they'll win it on appeal, but it's going to take a minute. The Georgia case, like the RICO case, where they're going after a bunch of different people, and they're mentioning the elector cases and all that other stuff, that got delayed because of Fani Willis and her inappropriate relations with her employee who was on the case and stuff too. So they ended up having to go to court and were in trouble. So they're fighting stuff. So Trump, they had a plan of attack there with their relationship, and they are successful. So that was going to be a really bad case. As far as the legality of it all, I don't know how strong their case was with an Atlanta jury. Perhaps it was going to go badly for them. I thought the worst thing about it would have been them streaming everything on TV and stuff, and everybody kind of listening to different decisions that were made and how different people behaved and so on. And I think some of that would have really hindered Trump's election. So, because that was going to be like in September. So really, really close, I think, if not a little later. I think it was going to be in September, but that got pushed. There's the DC one, which obviously would be bad, but I don't know how much that will go. Nothing's going to be done by the election, and a lot of stuff is going to be kind of tossed out because of the presidential immunity stuff. But the Florida case was the one that I thought was most problematic. And when I mentioned that I thought that one was problematic, most people would push back and like, no, he had, he was the president, so he could have these classified documents. So all this is really silly, blah, blah, blah. But there was a video of Trump talking about documents that he did not declassify that he still had. So that was an issue. And it was also an issue because of the obstruction of returning these documents and stuff, because they were doing a bunch of crazy stuff. They were hiding them around Mar-a-Lago, hiding them from like his lawyers, hiding them, had someone fly documents to New Jersey, like his other place. So there was just some behavior that's like, why would you do this? And I don't think, like, people are speculating all kind of nefarious stuff, like he's going to sell some, I don't know, stuff to Russia, like nuclear codes or something to Russia or something crazy like that. I think he just wanted the documents, and I think it's really that simple. I don't think it was a wise situation. It is what it is. So I thought that situation he would have had the fairest jury probably in Florida, but that was the case that actually had, I would say, the most merit. I'm not saying he would have been found guilty or anything like that, but that was the one that concerned me from for the as far as the details go. And so some people are like, "Aha, it's thrown out. It's because he was the president. He always." That's not even why it's thrown out. The reason why it's thrown out is because they're saying that it's illegal for the special counsel to be doing this at all. So he's very fortunate. Very, very fortunate. So let me read a little bit of it. It's kind of a long ruling, so I'm gonna just read basically the gist of what's important here. So, Judge Cannon said the bottom line is this: the appointments clause is a critical constitutional restriction stemming from the separation of powers, and it gives the Congress a considered role in determining the proprietary of vesting appointment power in uh, the inferior officers. The special counsel's position effectively usurps that important legislative authority, transferring it to head of the department, and in the process threatening the structured liberty inherent in the separation of powers. If the political branches wish to grant the Attorney General power to appoint Special Counsel Smith to investigate and prosecute this action with the full powers of the United States Attorney, there is a valid means by which to do so. He can be appointed and confirmed through the default method prescribed in the Appointments Clause, as Congress has directed for United States attorneys throughout American history. Um, or Congress can authorize his appointment through enactment of positive statutory law consistent with the Appointments Clause. So basically, the case or Jack Smith being appointed to all the stuff is a violation of the Appointments Clause. It's unconstitutional. People say they're going to appeal it, and it could go all the way up to the Supreme Court, but may not be a point in doing all that. Because I would say the point of these cases, and maybe I'm cynical here, especially all of them coming down together at once and people wanting to convict this man back to back to back to back. I don't know how it's fair to be able to handle all these trials like in a year or so while you're trying to run a presidential campaign. But I think that was kind of the point, to knowing that Trump would probably win his primary and starve all the money, all the time, all the attention into all of these cases. So he can't run a campaign. All this messy stuff is in the news. People don't want to vote for him. Depress the some of the base, and turn off people who are in the middle who might have maybe considered voting for him. But there's all this drama attached to it, and he sounds like an icky person as they keep pushing all the stuff. So I think all of this was a form of election interference, and it all fell apart, man. So there's lots of delays on stuff. The Fonnie Willis stuff, fell apart. Maybe if Trump doesn't win this election, maybe they would pursue this stuff into the next year. But I think most of this stuff was really to stop him from getting in the White House, and it just really backfired. Which is really interesting about all this is that July 12th was the day that you know Trump was supposed to be sentenced to jail. So we don't know if they're gonna actually put him in jail, which would have been really crazy because he needs Secret Service to be there with him. So would they be in jail with him? And how would that have worked out? Which Democrats actually tried to strip him of Secret Service. That was a thing. So seems kind of crazy, especially after what happened on Saturday. I mean, they could have gave him house arrest where he just have to be in Mar-a-Lago, and I'm like, would he even be able to go to the RNC convention? So these are the things that we've been talking about, we've been pondering about, and didn't know what the outcome would be, until, I mean, we just were talking about this like 2 weeks ago. And then they're like, okay, well, we're going to delay it. I'm like, oh, that's great. They're going to delay it. I think until maybe sometime in September, with the actual sentencing. And so the 12th should have been like a terrible day, and then the 12th was Friday, and that's when Biden had a awful kind of day. It wasn't as bad as, um, you know, Democrats. Or was that Thursday? When did he have the NATO thing? Because we did talk about it, but I swear we obviously didn't had enough time to talk about it. So maybe that was Thursday. All that stuff happened, um, but anyway, last weekend, Biden, called Zelensky Putin. Said that Trump was his VP instead of Kamala Harris. He got through his press conference. So he did well enough that the Democrats couldn't like force him out of office, but he still messed up majorly to make people feel that he's still not all there with it. So they're pretty much stuck with him. But and then of course what happened on Saturday was insane. And now Democrats, I said they're not going to replace him because after what happened, Trump's, I mean, people feel very, let me stand by Trump. And I don't know how much that works for people in the middle, those in between voters that just really decide the election. But Trump's enthusiasm from folks is going to be higher than it was before. And they took a major bullet out of the chamber for the Democrats, figuratively, about the rhetoric that they were really pushing. Now they could go back to it, but it would be really irresponsible if they go back to the threat to the democracy, blah blah blah. He's literally Hitler, knowing that there's a lot of unwell people in this country that have been made unwell by a lot of this rhetoric. I mean, they were unwell, they probably got worse, and someone wants to be famous or whatever. So we got to cool this down. So everybody's tactics are changing, but this project 2025 that's not even made by Trump, that's going to turn everything to handmaid's and tale. We're not going to have a country if Trump wins. That rhetoric can no longer be part of this race. It might be. It might return. But it shouldn't. It's still, I guess, an election races go. There's still a lot of time left. A lot of time on the clock. But I wouldn't suggest Democrats go back to that route. And if they don't go back to that route, then Biden has to actually run on his accomplishments. And people aren't buying them. They don't care. Because at the end of the day, it's hard for them to buy groceries. It's hard for them to put gas in the car. It's hard for them for their education and other things like that. So people are concerned about crime in the border and all these people coming over, and how people are being treated in some cases better than folks who are over here. People resent that. So Biden, he's like at 32%. He's just got nowhere to go. The fear mongering was their thing. Like, we have to scare you into supporting us rather than Trump. So there's been quite a few videos. If you follow like libs of TikTok on Twitter or X or whatever, you've probably seen some videos of people reposting videos from folks on TikTok. Some people with huge accounts, millions of followers, um, upset because the shooter missed or the shooter only grazed his ear, being upset that Donald Trump was still alive. And that's really insane. But if you've been conditioned to believe that there's not going to be a country left, that he's literally Hitler, that he's a threat to everything we hold dear, that they're going to, I don't know, kidnap women and forcibly impregnate them, or what other kind of nonsense that they think up in their heads, and you just think this is the beginning of the end for some reason, even though we all survived Trump and we live to tell the tale. If you actually believe all this deranged stuff, why wouldn't you be upset that literally Hitler still has a chance to be your president? So people who know better need to stop this rhetoric, because you are making the world crazy. You are. And the person who um, shot Trump. He's responsible for what he did. Joe Biden's not responsible for what he did, but Joe Biden is responsible for what comes out of his mouth. And so I had posted my article on YouTube, and someone who I guess I see them in my comments from time to time when I do posts, but I don't think has ever probably watched a live. But they said, "Oh, why don't you condemn Trump and your side when they promote political violence? Because it does happen." And I'm like, "Why are you asking a question like an accusation as if I don't do it?" And they're like, "You never say anything about Trump." And I said, "You're either very ignorant or you're a liar." Because I've very much complained about Trump when Trump does things I don't like. The last kind of glorification of violence I can think of, because people say things about Trump that aren't true. So I need to know what you're even talking about. Because like the bloodbath comment that people try to push around, that was not literal. That was not a call to action. That was about uh the economy and stuff, and the automotive industry and the effects of competing with China and stuff, if and what they'll have to deal with if Trump doesn't win the election. So it's talking about economic bloodbath. And people try to say, "Oh my gosh, she says if he doesn't win, there's gonna be a bloodbath." So I need to know what you're talking about when you mean people don't condemn violence, because you might have some kind of fantasy in your head. But the last like legitimate thing I can think of is that Trump, kind of made fun, not kind of, but made fun of like Pelosi being hit or whatever. And when that happened, I don't know if I wrote anything down about it. I didn't make a post on like YouTube. Maybe I said something on Twitter, but I definitely said something to you guys. So if you don't know my content, you can just say that, but I just hate when people misrepresent you. I bear false witness, I guess, is the best way to put it. Like, you know, you can ask a question, but you don't need to accuse and then double down on your ridiculousness. I call it out. If I don't see something, if I see something I don't like, I'm going to call it out. However, the sort of rhetoric that the Democrats and the left and the media have engaged in, or even the violence that they've engaged in, is still not comparable to the right. Again, call them out both on both sides, but the idea that people were saying that Trump was said that neo-Nazis was very violent people when it wasn't true, blatantly wasn't true. The evidence was there in the same presser where you are citing him, that he said very fine people. And then he said, "I not neo-Nazis. I totally condemn them." But you still want to say, "Oh, he's out there promoting the white supremacists," and you splice that up with bloodbath comments and all kinds of other stuff. When you do that, what do you think the repercussions are for the whole country? When you have people who suddenly think that like 70 million plus people said, "I like that guy who's a white supremacist. Let me vote for him." What kind of division are you sowing in the nation when you do things like this? And it's not like Biden doesn't know that that this is a lie that he's pushing. He knows. He knows. They don't care, because enough people will just listen to them. They won't look at the facts, and they want to believe the lie because that's where their hearts are at. And so they just allow themselves to be more deranged. I was listening. I don't know how much we'll actually get into the Destiny thing, but Destiny is a really big Twitch streamer, and he was on a Twitter space in which he also streamed it from, like, Kick something, I don't know. Um and they were talking about some comments he was making online, and he was making fun of the man who died at the rally, died shielding his girls and his wife at the rally. So and it was like a volunteer, like firefighter. So this man um at least died heroically for his family. Someone pointed out that, Destiny, he let other men pork his wife, and said that his if he could go back in time, or the circumstance, he would have aborted his son, because with his outlook now, it was a good thing he was conservative then, because he allowed his child to live. But if he had the same mindset that he has today back then his son would be dead. So I don't know why that fact doesn't alert you to, hey, maybe, because I do love my child, so maybe my mentality and my ethics are trash. I don't know why you don't come to that kind of conclusion. But he was just saying all this crazy stuff, and I can play you a clip that I did record, and it's got some unhinged stuff and some bad language, but I'll get to it later. But he said that Trump, he was talking about how awful Trump was, and he said Biden is the most milk toast politician and doesn't have a mean bone in his body. Y'all know that's trash, right? Like, that's cap. That's a lie. It's not true. Good people don't do what happened to Clarence Thomas. They don't allow those sorts of things to happen. Good people do not go around lying about why they are running for office, basing it all on Charlottesville, cutting different ads, putting Kyle Rittenhouse on an ad, accusing him of being like a white supremacist, or just lying about the bloodbath stuff. Like, good people don't do that. Let me show you this ad. Let me show you this ad that Biden made. Or Biden didn't cut it, obviously. But it says, I'm Joe Biden, I approve this message. So this is not done by a PAC. It's not by a PAC. So I gotta upload the file. So this is something that on YouTube, this is now unlisted. And they probably unlisted it after this weekend, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how long it's been unlisted. Some people are like, why is this unlisted now? But these are ads that they are apparently playing.
Biden, and I approve this message.
Of course I hate these people.
Donald Trump disrespecting black folk is nothing new. He was sued for refusing to rent his apartments to black families and called for the execution of 5 innocent black and brown teenagers.
And it's more than anger, it's hatred.
It's why Trump stood with violent white supremacists, warned of a bloodbath if he loses the next election, and if he's president again, vowed to be a dictator who wants revenge on his enemies. Now, who do you think that is?
Of course I hate these people.
Now, I hadn't seen that ad. Ben Shapiro played it on a special show on Sunday and talked about it. I'm like, that is wild. That is so wild. So, again, the bloodbath comments were not like literal go out, I'm going to commit bloodbath. We're going to commit bloodbath. It wasn't any kind of call of violence or action. Now, Jen Psaki, people like that, after they were criticized by everyone saying you guys took that out of context, she's like, no, we didn't take it out of context because we know how Trump actually is, and his supporters take him literally, and he knows they take him literally. Or you just want this to be the case, or you're just lying through your teeth because you're on MSNBC. And your viewers don't like to think that hard, and they'll just take what you spoon feed them. Jen, what an awful ad. And I cut ads when I was at the Michigan Republican Party in 2016. I made stuff, about Hillary Clinton and folks all the time. And my thing was, I never wanted to take someone out of context to the point of where if you went back and looked at something that you would say, she's lying. They're lying how they put this together. I never wanted someone, because one, it's dishonest, and I don't have a soul, guess, and a conscience. Just kind of this innate, like, let me do the right thing, law written on my heart. I don't know. I guess I'm not that person. So I never wanted to make something that was totally dishonest, but I made really, really good hits, man. I did. I love lighting like Hillary Clinton on fire with my content, my stuff that I would make. So what they did here, taking Trump out of context with the bloodbath comment, and the dictator comment, Trump did say he would be a dictator on day one, or for one day, and that was for immigration. That was in regards to immigration. He was joking, but he just meant like he's going to be like signing those executive orders, which Joe Biden did executive orders on the border, I believe on day one, getting rid of Remain in Mexico and other stuff like that that have really caused a big problem with the border. So they took that stuff and mixed it in with this Central Parks 5 stuff. Now, I haven't posted my video yet of when I'm debunking a lot of stuff, and then I forgot. Well, I don't think I forgot. I made a top 10 list, and the Central Park 5 didn't make the cut of my top 10 list, but perhaps it should have been up there close to maybe like 11 or something. I don't know. But because Joe Biden actually did mention this in an interview that his campaign called and told a radio station to cut out. But they're still pushing this, and there's people who still believe that Donald Trump took out an ad that called for these kids to be executed. Did you know that's not true? That's not what actually happened. The advertisement does talk about bring back the death penalty, but the overall like advertisement, which I'll have to do a separate video and I guess just read it to you guys, is that basically we need strong policemen and law enforcement and to put the fear of God back into criminals so they're not terrorizing people anymore. They don't even mention, from my memory when I read it, they don't mention anything even specifically about that particular case. Now, did Trump think they were guilty? Why wouldn't he? They confessed. Who wouldn't think that they did it? And there was a group of kids that night going around kind of like terrorizing and stuff. So, and you can say, well, they got off and they got that settlement. The victim didn't agree with them getting that settlement. Even beyond, if you just put the stuff on the case aside, which if you watch the documentaries, people who were actually involved in the case say that they, got a lot of stuff wrong and on purpose. And if you throw everything from the case aside, just think about the fact that this was a heinous crime, a heinous thing that happened to this woman, and they confessed. So what is Trump supposed to think about what happened when there's a jogger and then she's brutally beaten and assaulted? What are people supposed to think? Was he supposed to be like, I knew those innocent black people were innocent for the whole time? Everyone, how is he supposed to know that? Like their confession is wrong. How is he supposed to know that? And as far as like the strong language of like we should hate them, he did like say that in the article, not like specifically them, but he just meant like these criminals that do these really heinous sorts of things. He just had a sense of like justice needs to be done and people need to, be afraid to do something like this. So it was basically about kind of law and order in general. It wasn't like a calling out their names and saying that all these kids need to be executed, which they are minors. I don't think they could have did that anyway. So the way they present this case is just not accurate, but they piece that together because people are very emotional about this particular case and Trump's role in it. And when you add other things in there, plus like Charlottesville, you start to try to piece together a pattern, but everything is built on lies. If Trump was as bad as they say, then why do they have to lie about it? I can come on here and complain about things I don't like about Trump, and they're true things. And they're things that they're true. They're things that are my opinions about stuff that he said or did, or his behavior, or different policy decisions that he's making, directions that he's going, or about Joe Biden. I can talk about that kind of stuff. Like, I may talk about some personal things or whatever, but I don't go come on here and start making up stuff about Joe Biden. That is so left field. But Joe Biden and the Democrats, they do that all the time with this hyper hysterical stuff. And it's not good for the country. So with that in mind, with that ad I just showed you guys with Joe Biden, let me actually like show you the address if you haven't seen it. Tina said milk toast. Doesn't that mean bone in his body? Doesn't have a mean bone in his body? The same man that refused to acknowledge his own grandchild existed. Yeah, that was pretty mean. That was pretty darn mean of him to do. Joe Biden. Yeah, that was grotesque. Yeah, people see people from afar and they speculate and they make him some kind of legend in their own mind and say, "Not have a mean bone in their body." You can watch press conferences or just how sometimes he interacts with Peter Doocy or just somebody who pushes up back against him, and you can see that anger in him lashing out at people. Like he's, to say he doesn't have a mean bone in his body. The guy who said Mitt Romney was going to put black people back in chains, like that. Oh, that's not mean. We were talking about milk toast. Milk toast is like Mitt Romney, but they said he had binders full of women and put a dog on top of a car. Or just, I don't know. They took like really weird stuff and exaggerated it so much, and now we have these candidates who've done all these things that are just so out of the ordinary for campaigns. I guess Bush and Romney were pretty boring compared to like Trump and Biden. But anyway, let's watch this address. Now they were talking about, I guess, not even having this be live, but then I guess they had to do it live because they were getting into trash for possibly not doing this live. So he stumbles quite a bit. I wondered, by the way, let me just mention this so you guys can, when you hear it, you'll know it. But I wondered why people were talking about battle boxes online. And so I did watch this morning and I'm like, oh, battle boxes. So here we go.
My fellow Americans, I want to speak to you tonight about the need for us to lower the temperature in our politics. And to remember, while we may disagree, we are not enemies. We're neighbors, we're friends, co-workers, citizens, and most importantly, we're our fellow Americans. We must stand together. Yesterday's shooting at Donald Trump's rally in Pennsylvania calls on all of us to take a step back, take stock of where we are, how we go forward from here. Thankfully, former Trump is not seriously injured. I spoke with him last night. I'm grateful. He's doing well, and Jill and I keep him and his family in our prayers. We also extend our deepest condolences to the family of the victims who was killed. Corey was a husband, a father, a volunteer firefighter, a hero, sheltering his family from those bullets. We should all hold his family and all those injured in our prayers. Earlier today, I spoke about an ongoing investigation.
Let me address this what he said about how we all need to take a step back. I'm not saying the whole nation doesn't need to be lectured as a whole about political rhetoric, because both sides of the aisle will do it to get too hot, say stuff that's an exaggeration. Some people believe like this will be the end of everything if this person wins or that person wins, etc. So some people generally believe that stuff. But I hate this. Everybody just needs to. Everybody needs to do better. Just everybody. People say that stuff when they want to point the finger everywhere else, but they don't want to take accountability for themselves. So this man is responsible. I showed you that ad. I showed you that crazy ad that they made that said, "I'm Joe Biden. I approve of this message." That was not an ad buy a pack. That was him. That was him. His Joe Biden Harris HQ thing put up the image of the Handmaid's Tale on 4th of July, on a day where we should have been united. And they said this will be America, Trump's America under Project 2025. And they know good and well that Trump didn't read those 900 pages. He doesn't know what's in it, and neither does Joe Biden, because I'm sure he didn't read it either. You got your little talking points or whatever, which I'm sure most of it's probably fine. I don't know, because I'm a little tempted to skim it, but I'm not 900. I don't want to do that. Not really. You know, you could do one of those, put a finger down if you're for, I don't have enough fingers. So a lot of people are talking about Project 2025 and have no idea what's in it. I've seen people share stuff that's not in it. And it's just silly. They could talk about Agenda 47. They could talk about the new Republican platform. That's the stuff that they could talk about. But they keep lying. Because you don't want to actually talk about the truth. You don't want to talk about your policies. You don't want to talk about Trump's real policies. You just want to fearmonger. You just want to fearmonger. Trump is saying, okay, I don't want to do nothing on the abortion thing. It's back to the states. The states want to do up to the moment of birth or what. So that's really left leaning, but if that's what they want to do, I'm not gonna do nothing about that abortion pill. You know, I'm not for bans. I'm not. 6 weeks are terrible. And then Kamala Harris will still tweet out, he's gonna ban abortion. This man's throwing the whole pro-life movement under the bus, and you're like, he's just gonna ban it. He's gonna ban it. Just talk about actual things that people are saying. Just talk about actual things that people are saying, and talk about the things that you're actually doing. Because when you're actually an incumbent, people have to look at what you've done, what's on the table right now, and say, I like that. I would like some more of that. Or if they don't, they say, no, thank you, never again. So I can understand why they want to shift the narrative about how Trump is just, we can't afford him, even though we've already experienced him. It's really stupid. But I'm gonna need him to apologize. This isn't good enough for me. This is an okay address, but it's not good enough. It rings hollow. Do you guys remember when people were going around saying everybody's racist? Not everybody, because they don't say black people are racist, because we don't have the institutional power to be racist. So I can't be racist. Some of you guys watching, I guess what they would say you're racist, but I can't be racist because I'm black. So but they were saying all the white people have to admit that they're racist, and they have to do the work. And if you don't admit that you're racist, then that's because you're really super duper racist and you have white privilege and all this stuff. Like, that was the mentality in 2020. People were saying over and over and over again, and apologizing for their white privilege. And sometimes when people would apologize, I'd be like, okay, give me $20. And they'd be like, I'm like, well, what else do you want to do? Like, what's the point of your confession? Like, what am I supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? Am I supposed to just be, you want me to absolve you? Give me $20. If you really want to feel better and you want to pay, you can slip it in my pocket that's how you feel, you know. And then they didn't know what to do because they just wanted to virtue signal. But they would say, okay, we're all racist, guys. We got to admit it. I'm like, or maybe you're just the racist and you need to deal with that. But you don't need to lump everybody in there with you. If you really think you're a racist, you take accountability for being a racist. But don't be like, it's just everybody, guys. Why don't you as an individual stop being a bad person if that's true? And if you're just lying about being racist because you want to look good, that is so weird. That is So weird, but so many people did it. So many people did it. One person who I mutuals with on like online on social media, they gave their story about why they decided to stop being like a leftist, and they're just like, I got tired of needing to convince people that I was racist and having to admit that. And that was just their penance. They had to say it regardless of whether they believed it or not. That's one reason why people say like, oh, Republicans are racist. I'm like, Republicans weren't the ones running around apologizing for being racist all in 2020. All y'all admitted that y'all was racist. That wasn't something that our side was doing. You say, well, they were racist. That's up to speculation, but you guys like flat out admitted it. So if you flat out admitted it, I guess we'll go off your word that you guys are all the racists. And we're gonna need to see some evidence for everybody else. But that's this vibe here from Joe. Like everybody's gotta take a step back. Everybody's gotta we all gotta do better. Like sometimes like in church there'll be like some kind of announcement like we all gotta do better, getting on time. Well, maybe I'm on time. Not everybody doesn't need to do better. Some of y'all need to do better with your attendance. Like it's just, really about a lack of self accountability. And I understand he doesn't want to open himself up to those sort of criticisms because he is the president and he is running for re-election. But that would actually go a long way to show people that you are sincere in your calls for unity, in your calls to tone down the rhetoric. Now we'll just see. We'll see. We'll observe. We'll see if they actually turn down the rhetoric. If that will be a thing, or if they're still going to go hit the campaign trail and say that Trump is a threat, the MAGA extremists are a threat, and so on. We'll see what their tone is, because this kumbaya lovey-dovey stuff is not going to last up until the end of the election. I don't believe it. Especially, again, there's this lack of sincerity here. Now, Trump actually getting shot, that changes a lot as far as the political landscape and the different conversations that people are having, and strategy wise, yes, it has a huge impact. But they don't have any sort of route to go. Joe Biden has to kind of be like the angry, vigorous old man, because if he's just kind of nice and quiet, well, his quiet is the creepy whisper, and that's weird. But he'll just probably come off as kind of dying, so he's trying to be aggressive and vigorous to show his base that he can fight. So if he has to go out there and hold everybody's hand, walking around like his hands like this for some reason, it's not gonna work out well for him. It's not.
We do not know the motive of the shooter yet. We don't know his opinions or affiliations. We don't know whether he had help or support, or if he communicated with anyone else. Law enforcement professionals, as I speak, are investigating those questions. Tonight, I want to speak to what we do know. A former president was shot, an American citizen killed, while simply exercising his freedom to support the candidate of his choosing. We must not go down this road in America. We've traveled before throughout our history. Violence has never been the answer. Whether it's with members of Congress of both parties being targeted and shot, or a violent mob attacking the Capitol on January 6th, or a brutal attack on the spouse of former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, or information and intimidation on election officials, or the kidnapping plot against the sitting governor, or an attempted assassination on Donald Trump. There is no place in America for this kind of violence, for any violence ever. Period. No exceptions. We can't allow this violence to be normalized. The political record in this country has gotten very heated.
Yeah, and that's your fault, Joe. Not solely your fault, but you play a big role and you don't take accountability for it. But to the examples that he gave, there was a lot of like government authority dipping into the Whitmer case, as far as setting folks up. So don't get me wrong, people who like participate in that is all crazy. But there's shady stuff involved with that. Um, the what else did he mention? He mentioned Nancy Pelosi's husband. I don't. That was just violence in general. I think that was which was awful. And the people who made a lot of jokes and stuff about it, it was I watching the actual video and stuff. It's even I'm like squeamish thinking about someone just hitting you in the head like that with a hammer. How folks on the right reacted to that story as people were speculating all kinds of stuff. I, wasn't great, or the finest moment, guys, but I wouldn't. I don't know. These things don't seem to be the same as he referenced shooting congressional people from both sides. I think that's a vague hint to the congressional baseball shooting. I'm not aware of who else he might be talking about from the Democrat side who was attacked in that kind of way. I'm not saying people on the left aren't targeted, but it just seems weird to me to not have a special shout out for the congressional baseball shooting, but you're going to mention the attempted kidnapping of Gretchen Whitmer, because that congressional baseball shooting, they'd all be dead if Scalise wasn't there, because Scalise had the special detail with him, so he special security there. If not for them being able to fight back against this deranged, Bernie supporter who was shooting at them saying this is for healthcare, according to Rand Paul, people would have died. People that I know, like personally, would have died that day because people are so insane about politics and deranged. And when people say they're killing your grandma, they're killing people over in healthcare, someone out there is bound to believe you. And when you put ads like Paul Ryan, like throwing the grandma over a cliff, maybe someone is bound to believe you. Now that shooter is responsible for the actions that he took. I don't think Bernie Sanders didn't shoot anybody or whatever. But that sort of hyperbolic language is not helpful. I guess helpful in the sense that maybe it makes you win. But at the end of the day, what's going to happen to our country as we continue to turn up this political heat? But that was a crazy day. And they all would have died, probably, if Scalise wasn't there. And Scalise almost died. He had to have surgery. They didn't know if he was going to make it. Rand Paul got attacked by his neighbor. That was another incident. He was like mowing his lawn. I think the guy just like full on attacked him and he like broke his ribs. I think punctured his lung, and he had to have surgery. And I think Nancy Pelosi's daughter said something like mocking him when that happened. There was an uncomfortable amount of people who were cheering the neighbor for nearly killing him. And then when Rand Paul came out of the RNC convention in 2020, there was a mob of like BLM protesters and Antifa folks and stuff who surrounded him. And he was with different security, I think, or police officers. And they're like yelling and chanting and saying stuff about Breonna Taylor. And Rand Paul is the one who like introduced or whatever, fought for like the Breonna Taylor Act and stuff, and is against no-knock warrants. He's a very libertarian leaning Republican, and they're attacking. They shouldn't be attacking anyone, but they're definitely attacking the wrong guy. And then if you watch the videos, if you were in that situation, I would be very concerned if I were in that situation and people try to downplay it like as if his life wasn't in danger after surviving like these terrible encounters. So, I thought the mentioning of some of the stuff was interesting because BLM riots went on went on for a while. There's different demonstrations now for pro, Palestinian folks who have resorted to violence and, uh, and destroying property and holding people kidnapped and all sorts of different stuff. But Biden, they don't want to really touch that. They'll say like little condemnation, like, "Oh, we should never have violence, but peaceful protests, etc." Blah blah blah, and there'll be a tweet. But there's not really strong language trying to really, really condemn the stuff. At least not to the same level that you'll see with like the Charlottesville stuff. They don't bring that same energy with BLM stuff or with this stuff going on right now with the anti-Israel demonstrators. You don't see that. But let's finish this out.
It's time to cool it down. We all have a responsibility to do that. Yes, we have deeply felt strong disagreements. The stakes in this election are enormously high. I've said it many times that the choice in this election we make in this election is going to shape the future of America and the world for decades to come. I believe that with all my soul. I know that millions of my fellow Americans believe it as well.
Okay, so this election is going to shape America. It's going to shape America. So what sorts of things has Joe Biden said about this election? He said, "I believe this stuff with all my heart, my mind, and my soul." So what sorts of things did Joe Biden say about this election? Now, mind you, Joe Biden doesn't actually run his account. So, but it's still on his name. This is all a representation of the president. No, it's not taken down. This comms folks are the ones who make this stuff. So, Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans are a threat to the very soul of this country. The very soul of this country, huh? Donald Trump is the greatest threat to our democracy. Donald Trump is a genuine threat to this nation. He's a threat to our freedom. He's a threat to our democracy. He's literally a threat to everything America stands for. Everything America stands for, huh? Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy, and we cannot let him win. I'm in Madison, Wisconsin, talking to folks about what's at stake in this election. Tune in. Trump poses many threats to our country. The right to choose, civil rights, guys, voting rights, and America's standing in the world. But the greatest threat he poses is to our democracy. If we lose that, we lose everything. So when he says this is the greatest election ever, and the consequences, so on, he has said that this is a threat to democracy, that Trump and his supporters and so on. So what he could do is just tell Americans, we all need to police our language, and I've been irresponsible as well. And he could just admit that, Trump isn't actually like the threat that they're pretending that he is. Maybe some of you out there actually do think that he's this big threat. Let me just run down a list of stuff though. Donald Trump was spied on by the former administration that Joe Biden was a part of, Obama's administration. President Trump was framed to be some kind of Russian asset by Hillary Clinton, who's also part of Obama's former administration, but not at the time when she cooked up this plan. But Joe Biden and Obama both knew about it because they were briefed by the CIA about it. When Trump was elected, the media nonstop pushed a narrative about the Russia stuff. After Comey would not admit that all that stuff was bunk, he got frustrated and he fired him. And then the Mueller investigation was triggered. So spied on, lied on, investigated by special counsels, right? There's that. Okay, so he was impeached twice for no crimes. He didn't commit any, high crime and misdemeanor. And people were saying he doesn't really need to be convicted of crime. And he didn't, with the after January 6th, he didn't meet the legal requirements for incitement. So he got impeached twice. He beat the convictions both times, but he was impeached twice. He was voted out what if you believe it or not, he was voted out. He left when he was constitutionally mandated to leave. He was ostracized from online. He kicked off social media on Facebook, on Twitter for the dumbest reasons. What Twitter used the tweet when he said he wasn't going to be at the inauguration. They're like, oh, well, that could signal that it's okay to go commit violence because he's not there. Now, Trump obviously didn't say that, but that's how they decided to interpret it to justify kicking him off of Twitter. Then he got kicked off of Facebook, and now he's back on, I think maybe both platforms, but definitely Twitter. But he just usually posts on Truth Social, and people will repost his stuff. But yeah, it just seems like with all that, plus the fact that he's been indicted in several different cases and convicted in some, and they're trying to take his fortune, bog him down with all these investigations. It just really seems like he's not a threat to democracy. He's not a threat to the rule of law. He's not someone who's certainly above the law. I think the real threat is all the things that people are willing to do to stop him. I think that appears to be the real threat there. You shouldn't have Andrew Cuomo saying, oh yeah, this case would have never been brought if his name wasn't Trump and he wasn't running for president. That shouldn't happen in America. That shouldn't happen. And we all know that it's true. We all know that it's true. So no, I don't think that he's a threat to democracy. Oh, if they choose Trump, all these people choose Trump, that's the threat to democracy. Okay. Trying to get him kicked off a ballot wasn't a threat to democracy. Which we're not. People are probably listening to saying, we're not a democracy, because I hate when you say that. Yeah, that's true. We're not a democracy, not a pure one anyway, because we don't want to be ruled by the mob, the tyranny of the mob. So one reason why maybe they like that word so much is because it's really easy to herd sheep, man. And they can put out their lies, especially to these big media markets and where a lot of these lefties live, and then, make them all hype about how awful Trump is and engage them, get them to the polls, and they win. But thank God it's just not a popular vote situation that we have the Electoral College. So again, Trump is not the one who's the threat. Now I've laid out how I think that Trump is Biden is the bigger threat, and I wrote an article about that on my website. You guys can go check it out later. But I'm not saying that this will be the end of America if Trump doesn't win or Biden wins. I haven't said that, and I haven't used language like that. I made a post on the 4th of July that said the opposite, like we will continue to survive. I think things can get pretty bad, don't get me wrong, but I'm not going to tell you guys it's the end of the country, or this will be the last election that we'll ever have, and a bunch of other hysterical stuff that people like to say. But it is disturbing, all of the things that people are willing to do to stop Trump. And I guess not just Trump. People lie and do all kinds of things all the time, but the amount of methods that people have used specifically against Trump, and that people would justify them. That's the concerning thing. How people will justify them is what's really concerning. But they will justify the most extreme measures against Trump because they have been radicalized by people like Joe Biden and MSNBC, Joy Reid, and so on. They wouldn't even air Morning Joe today, by the way. They wouldn't air Morning Joe today because their guests that they have on that show and their panelists are so insane, and they didn't want them to say something super crazy after Trump got shot that might have been too heated or too crazy. They are preemptively trying to protect themselves. So they did not show Morning Joe today. Isn't that insane? An admission of guilt of how crazy your so-called news organization is in your so-called news show. But I've got I can show you guys a montage of a bunch of people just saying that Trump is like Hitler, including from Morning Joe. So they're probably trying to avoid stuff like that. But let's listen to the rest of this address.
And some have a different view as to the direction our country should take. Disagreement is inevitable in American democracy. It's part of human nature. But politics must never be a literal battlefield, and God forbid, a killing field. I believe politics ought to be an arena for peaceful debate, to pursue justice, to make decisions guided by the Declaration of Independence and our Constitution. We stand for an America, not of extremism and fury, but of decency and grace. All of us now face the time of testing as the election approaches. And the higher the stakes, the more fervent the passions become. This places an added burden on each of us to ensure that no matter how strong our convictions, we must never descend into violence. The Republican convention will start tomorrow. I have no doubt they'll criticize my record and offer their own vision for this country. I'll be traveling this week making the case for our record and the vision, my vision of the country, our vision. I'll continue to speak out strongly for our democracy, stand up for our Constitution and the rule of law, to call for action at the ballot box, no violence on our streets. That's how democracy should work. We debate and disagree. We compare and contrast the character of the candidates, the records, the issues, the agenda, the vision for America. But in America, we resolve our differences at the battle box. You know, that's how we do it, at the battle box, not with bullets. The power to change America should always rest in the hands of the people, not in the hands of a would-be assassin.
I love how his eyes got really big, as if he realized that he had made some kind of mistake, had said that wrong, and then he just repeated about the battle box. Anyway.
You know, the path forward through competing visions of the campaign should always be resolved peacefully, not through acts of violence. You know, we're blessed to live in the greatest country on earth, and I believe that with every soul, every power of my being. So tonight, I'm asking every American to recommit, to think about it. What's made America so special? Here in America, everyone must be treated with dignity and respect.
Yeah, y'all notice how he was going to say "Make America Great," but he couldn't bring himself to say it.
And hate must have no safe harbor. Here in America, we need to get out of our silos where we only listen to those with whom we agree, where misinformation is rampant, where foreign actors fan the flames of our division to shape the outcomes consistent with their interests, not ours. Let's remember, here in America, while unity is the most elusive of all goals right now.
I'm sorry. The fact that he mentioned foreign actors shaping our goals when he quite literally went on the debate stage in 2020 and blamed his son's laptop on Russians and or referred to the letter by the intelligence agencies that it looked like Russian misinformation. He's so part of the problem, guys. He's so part of the problem.
Now, nothing is more important for us now than standing together. We can do this. You know, from the beginning, our founders understood the power of passion. So they created a democracy that gave reason and balance a chance to prevail over brute force. That's the American we must be. An American democracy where arguments are made in good faith. An American democracy where the rule of law is respected. An American democracy where decency, dignity, fair play aren't just quaint notions, but living, breathing realities. We owe that to those who come before us, to those who gave their lives for this country. We owe that to ourselves. We owe it to our children and our grandchildren. Look, let's never lose sight of who we are. Let's remember we are the United States of America. There is nothing beyond our capacity when we do it together. God bless you all. May God protect our troops.
So that was the address. That was the address. So it was most, I mean, I guess there's always things to say about it, but and it's titled "We Are Not Enemies," and I find that really hard to believe when you made it very clear that you think we are extremists, and just normal people are extremists because they don't share your views. Like the idea that I would say, hey, human rights should begin when you're human, and we can't just kill humans. That makes me an extremist. I don't think my position is unreasonable, to be frank, but anyway. Anyway, let's move on. JD Vance was selected as the VP pick for Donald Trump. And so this basically happened right before I went on came live, and I thought it was probably going to happen while we were live. So I haven't seen a lot of reactions from it. Some people seem happy, some people don't seem happy, but I don't see the wisdom in it personally. He doesn't need that help there from Ohio or anything, but I guess Trump is very much going to be the person fronting out on this ticket, driving things home. There's some people who would have made, I guess, padding the ticket to make them feel better about Trump if they're not too keen on him, but they want to give him a chance. Like, um, I'll throw a name out there, for example, Nikki Haley, which his base would have been really upset about. Like, super MAGA people would have been upset about that. Other people would have been very comfortable or comforted by it, but his base also would have just bit the bullet and just took it if he did it. Um, uh, People said Ron DeSantis. I'm like, why would he leave being a governor for that? I don't see any benefit from him. I think, it'd be really nice because he can govern well, but he still has a state to govern himself. People were throwing around Glenn Youngkin, and I'm like, why would Glenn Youngkin do that either? uh they have he has a bright political future, all on his own. Derailing that to be VP when things could go sour for him at the last minute, like they did from good old Mike Pence, isn't a benefit to them. So if I wouldn't have wanted to do it if I was him or DeSantis. I can understand people liking them and wanting them to be on the ticket, but to me, that wasn't reasonable. So Burgum, I thought maybe it was going to be Burgum from the different buzz around. But Trump did mention that his state's stance on abortion, maybe being a little too pro-life, was problematic. So I found those comments pretty disturbing. Rubio, that would have made people really happy. Tim Scott hasn't actually been like a top contender for a while. So it was either going to be Burgum, Vance, or Rubio. JD Vance will be, I mean, people see him as a loyal MAGA bulldog kind of guy. I'm sure if there is some kind of VP debate, he'll really go ham on Kamala Harris and stuff, and he'll be pretty aggressive on the campaign trail. But there are some issues with JD Vance. As of late, I was really upset with JD Vance's comments on the abortion pill. I saw someone was really excited, like, oh, he just converted to Catholicism, and well, I don't know if he just converted, but he's a Catholic convert, and he's going to be the VP. I'm like, the Catholic convert is supporting this abortion pill that kills 2/3 of the babies that are killed by abortion. So that stance that he took as of late was very concerning to me. But something that could be bad for the ticket, like a needless sort of self-inflicted wound, is that he talked a lot of junk about Trump before, man. He said a lot of things. So Brett Baer asked him about this. So there were clips going around with Brett Baer just listing certain things that was like 20 seconds long. But I'm like, what is his actual answer? So thanks to Mediaite for actually including Vance's answer when they decided to write an article about this, because I thought it was only fair that we got to see his response, because he's going to need to respond to this. Because he has said a lot of negative things about Donald Trump, and they're just easy ads to make. So again, kind of a self-inflicted wound here if they cut all this stuff, which I'm sure they will.
You know, Senator, this is an evolution. And I know you've been asked about this before, about past comments that you've made about Donald Trump. You've said, I'm a never Trump guy, never liked him, terrible candidate, idiot if you voted for him, might be America's Hitler, might be a cynical a-hole, cultural heroine, noxious and reprehensible. Those are things that the left is going to come after you. And they're probably going to be put in ads should you be chosen as the VP pick. How do you deal with them now?
Yeah, well, I think the simple answer is you've got to respect the American people enough to just level with them. Look, I was wrong about Donald Trump. I didn't think he was going to be a good president, Brett. He was a great president, and it's one of the reasons why I'm working so hard to make sure he gets a second term. I think you should. When you're wrong about something, you should change your mind and be honest with people about that fact. And I actually think, again, whether this is running as his running mate or running and supporting him as a United States senator, Brett, I think it actually presents a real opportunity to talk to the American people, because a lot of people didn't think Trump was going to be a good president, and a lot of people were happy to be proven wrong. And I think it presents an opportunity for me to make the case to the American people that, look, we have two very different sets of results. 4 years of Joe Biden, 4 years of Donald Trump. We know the Trump record is one of success. The Biden record is one of failure. I came around to Donald Trump, and I think that a lot of Americans will do the exact same thing.
So, So I thought that was a good answer. My sister said, his response is better than Kamala's response to how she trashed Biden. That is true, because Kamala Harris was asked about her comments about busing with Biden. He's like, you really went in on him, and she's like, it was a debate. We went to a debate. We had a debate. So that was a good answer. Maybe about as good as you can give for those kinds of comments. Another way to look at it, though, is that he makes a genuine point that there's a lot of people who thought that Trump would be terrible and awful, and now they're like, oh no, he was great, or he's just far better than Biden. We got to support him. I mean, Ben Shapiro was like, he's never going to appoint these people to the Supreme Court, and as soon as they got Gorsuch, he had to wear a Trump hat on his show. So Trump surprised a lot of people. So I think that's a fair point, that he was able to change hearts and minds because of the work that he did himself. So that's a good answer. Like, Trump changed my mind. He can change your mind. He proved to me that he's worthy of support. And that's why I'm out here trying to make the case of how he turned me around. And I believe that you should give him another shot as well. I think that's a really good answer. The counter to the alleged sincerity would be, everybody's got to get on the Trump train if they want some kind of political power. So that's the easy counter. You'll say and do anything to be vice president. You'll say and do anything to be elected. So, are the abortion pills being available and not being touched on a federal level, are those your real convictions, or are you saying that because that's Trump's position and you want to make sure that he picks you as the VP? So people can just dismiss his sincerity, which folks are already doing. People are using that clip from Brett Baer and not with his answer. They're just using the question, like the 20 seconds of him using those different quotes. And they're not going to play his answer in ads. They're just going to say, Donald Trump's own VP said he was cultural poison and he literally Hitler. And so they could just go negative with his own words. So it's not that you can't fight against it. I just don't see the point of the self-inflicted wound. I don't. It's not like sometimes you join forces after a debate, like in the case of like Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, but that wasn't the case with Vance and Trump. He just didn't like him and was voicing his opinions about how he didn't like him. So again, I don't see how he adds a lot to the ticket. Now maybe you could say he I'm sorry, I'm just going through different threads I'm seeing what different people are saying about him. Again, he's a bulldog, I guess, and will go out there and really defend Trump and is articulate. And Trump is the head of the ticket. He doesn't need Vance to pull Ohio or so. Trump will do the work there. But I don't know. You want your VP to really kind of pad the ticket if you can, and if something, God forbid, happened to Trump, which is a question that people have to ask anyway, because he is old like Biden is old. And things could happen with their natural health. And Trump was literally shot at the other day. So you have to talk about succession. And JD Vance just wouldn't be my pick if we were saying who's going to be the president. And he's really green, I would say, pretty fresh in all this. If it was like Rubio, who's been in the Senate a while, he did run for president himself. He knows a lot about like foreign policy because of different committees that he's on. So I guess it's the lack of experience factor. I guess you could say it wouldn't be too much worse than Kamala, I guess. But I don't know. I guess I'm gonna look at some other perspectives from people about this, but I'm not crazy about it. But I didn't think I was gonna be crazy about his pick anyway. There's people I'm really glad he didn't pick. I'll just say Vivek. You guys know I wasn't too fond of Vivek, so I'm glad there wasn't a curveball with that. I'm also glad, even though I do think like DeSantis is a good governor, I didn't want him pulled out of that to be the VP. So I'm, glad that he's going to finish off in Florida. And I think it's best for Youngkin that he stays in Virginia. So I don't know. I guess I wasn't crazy about who was going to be anyway. So I'm not disappointed, I guess. I'm happier than I would be about some other folks, obviously. But I just don't intellectually understand it. So we'll see. Maybe I'll have a more evolved opinion about it tomorrow. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up for you guys. Show you guys, because I would show it, let me show you this montage of someone, Brian Stelter wrote a post, and I didn't realize his name was on this. If you guys saw this New Republic picture with Trump fused as Hitler, like if you've seen this, American fascism. So Brian Stelter had said, "Don't be fooled by the social media freak show. The vast majority of Americans have so much in common. We're not at each other's throats over Trump and Biden. We're not in the political arena at all. We're on the porch, at the pool, in the pews. We're not fighting on here, blah, blah, blah." And someone retweeted this article because Brian Stelter is there. He was part of this crazy report. And so there was this, and also the Washington Post posted an opinion piece on why it's okay to compare Trump to Hitler. So that's obviously a trash thing, and all this stuff happened before the shooting. It's just their normal kind of conversations. Oh, let me read what Trump actually said about JD Vance. After lengthy deliberation and thought, and considering the tremendous talents of many others, I have decided that the person best suited to assume the position of Vice President of the United States is Senator J.D. Vance of the great state of Ohio. J.D. honorably served our country in the Marine Corps, graduated from Ohio State University in 2 years, summa cum laude, and is a Yale Law School graduate, where he was editor of the Yale Law Journal and president of the Yale Law Veterans Association. J.D.'s book, Hillbilly Elegy, from a major bestseller and movie, is championed the hardworking men and women of our country. JD has had a very successful business career as a technology and finance, and now during the campaign will be strongly focused on the people he fought so brilliantly for, the American workers and farmers in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Minnesota, and far beyond. So that's a good explanation there. I'm not sure that it's a better pick than the other top ones that they were talking about. So, and again, there's still the comments that he's made before. So we'll see. But last thing I want to show you guys is this montage of people saying that Trump was literally Hitler.
When is the time to sound the alarm? When is the time to start saying, well, does this look like Germany in 1932?
Increasingly, Donald Trump is turning this nation into Nazi Germany.
If the party nominates Hitler, you're going to vote for him? I mean, that's what I don't get.
I want to start using the word fascist.
Yeah, he's a fascist.
And tendencies, many tendencies like Adolf Hitler.
Yeah.
I said it, throw me off the air.
I hate comparing Trump to Hitler because Hitler could concentrate for more than 30 seconds and had normal-sized human hands.
You actually draw a line from Nazi Germany to the U.S. southern border. You remember that back then, boatloads of refugees were turned back.
Let's put up Charles Lindbergh and the 1940s Nazi sympathizers. They were also called Make America First.
Why do you think he uses the term America First, which is taken from history back when Nazi Germany was rising?
Language that he's using echoes language used in Nazi propaganda.
I'm sorry, is that straight out of Nazi Germany? And frankly, could be straight out of Munich circa 1928.
That is exactly why Donald Trump is compared to Hitler.
It's methodology that Trump no doubt learned from any number of authoritarian leaders over the last 90 years. Ataturk, Franco, Mussolini, Stalin, and Hitler.
This is not a reach. I could go back and talk about Nazi Germany, and I do it without any concerns whatsoever. And if people can't start drawing the parallels, well, you're just stupid, or you have your head in the sand, or you're one of them.
You're one of them. If you don't agree, you're one of them. Okay. Do you guys wonder why they wouldn't play Morning Joe this morning? Afraid of what might be said after Trump was assassinated. Morning Joe is unhinged, man. Absolutely unhinged. Thank you. Beacon of Hope said you did Kamala's voice and laughter really well. Yeah. She's the worst. I don't know if they did they say when Biden presented we'll do two debates, did they say something about a vice president debate? Did they say they were open to it, or I can't recall if they said they were open to it or if Trump just said did they wanted one. But I guess we'll see how that would go. I mean, Mike Pence beat Kamala Harris in the debate, but people didn't care because a fly landed in his hair. It was funny when Trump and Biden debated the first debate, and they were just kind of angry, kind of yelling at each other. Trump was like really too aggressive and stuff. It just wasn't a good debate. And people were like, America, we deserve better. We deserve better. We deserve better than this. And then Mike Pence and Kamala Harris debated, and everybody, all they could talk about was the fly in Mike Pence's hair. And then I'm like, America does not deserve better. we don't deserve better. We don't deserve better. Because they're talking about policy stuff and she's losing. But people have to write think pieces on how she really can't go as hard as she, needs to go because people will call her like the angry black woman or whatever. When the truth is that she just didn't have we know she's not talented, right? Throughout the years we've seen this. It's not just her trying to hold back being the black woman or whatever and not be a stereotype. She's just not good at this. And Mike Pence was better. He was very good in his debate in 2016 too. But nobody cared. They just cared about the fly in his hair. So we need to do better. We do need to be better overall as a nation, but do we deserve better? I think that's kind of strong. But we need to work to really deserve better. I mean, our candidates are reflections of us, where we're at. So many people are upset about the picks that we have, but I think that's really telling of the nation as a whole itself. We're so divided and don't know what we want, and so many people are so kind of used to doing what's comfortable. Because I would say that not challenging Biden or people even just going with Trump in a lot of ways is just familiarity. And and that's just the case with a lot of incumbents. They get in the seat and it's very hard to push them out of there because they have the money and they have the name ID and folks don't want to go and do new research. They're just like, oh, I'm used to this. I'm used to seeing this person. You got to be really bad to get booted. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website, because it does cost to stream and run my site, all that stuff. You guys can support. I appreciate it. You guys can also check out different merch that's available at the store, like this cool Be Better Not Bitter shirt that I have available. Also got black tea mugs and other stuff. So go ahead and check that out. God bless you guys. And we'll have lots of more news tomorrow, things I didn't get to really. I mean, I touched on the Destiny thing a little bit, but I want to go more in depth with it. So I'm going to probably do a separate video and post it. But again, Destiny is a huge Twitch streamer, and he just really was unhinged last night and just really saying crazy stuff. But I don't know how much of it is just kind of having a breakdown or how much of it is performance artist, him being a performance artist, kind of like, Alex Jones is in a way. Because the stuff he was saying was just so off the wall. Like if it's truly TDS, it's something worth observing and looking at, because the sort of things he was saying was just absurd. So we'll get to that later. Stay on the lookout for it. Make sure that you guys are subscribed and you hit the notification bells. God bless, and I'll see you tomorrow.